I can get Chris in there too.
Somewhere. Where is he?
Yeah, he's over there.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Well, he's on the good computer.
Yeah, but that
Hi,
computer
Chris.
doesn't go live.
All right, so I think we are live right now. Let me look on my phone here and confirm that. Yes, we are. We are live right now. Okay. So for everybody, our viewers out there, my name is Larry Keith. I am the host of the Takedown Confidence Summit. And with me today are Chris and Melissa Haueter. They were both speakers on the Takedown Confidence Summit. There you are, sir. Hi, how are you?
Good, except I woke up this morning and my back's out.
Oh no.
Yep. We all know how that is.
Oh, there's always something, right?
Oh, the dreaded back out, right?
Yep. I tripped and threw mine out just a little bit a couple days ago, which is a unique story in itself that I won't get into right now. But anyway, so a little bit of hip and back twist, and so I'm feeling better today. But man, for the rest of yesterday, I was pretty jacked up. So feeling good today though. So let's talk to our audience a little bit about the Takedown Confidence Summit. First of all, you know, from each of you, what do you think? Where you saw the value in this, where you wanted to participate in this type of event. So what can you tell the audience about that?
Well, the first thing I would say is I believe it is all too common for many a jiu-jitsu school at this point to concentrate on sport, but jiu-jitsu, which was really concentrating on 70 to 80% guard. Just like it's very common with a modern judo school, which will concentrate on 80 to 90% stand up and the throw. And clearly there are wise reasons why, because environment is stronger than will. And the cultural / man-made rules environment of the game is just as strong as the physical environment. And the man-made rules of the game are such that to spend a lot of time in stand-up throws, if you're about to compete in a jiu-jitsu competition, might be poor use of time, let's say. Whereas one should spend more time with guard and passing guard. And the inverse is true with judo. So this lion and this tiger, they breed, but their offspring are often sterile,
Right.
meaning they don't compete. They don't have kids.
Yep.
It's great. Everybody loves a liger, but it's sterile.
Right.
But at the same time, if we equate it more as the grizzly bear and the polar bear, their offspring can breed. So maybe we're re-evolving, especially as we enter all these new pro league style competitions.
Right.
And I love to say this all the time because it is so true, and I'll say it one last time, is environment is stronger than will.
Yeah.
And as much as your goal is, I want to learn martial arts for self-defense, once you enter a school, you will start to adapt to how that school teaches. So my job as a coach is to create an environment which is a balance between street, art, and sport, keeping in mind that there are man-made rules, cultural rules, and physical rules which will alter at which one of those things we lean into. And thinking of that as a flat, two-dimensional triangle is also an error, when really we want to turn this up and it's a pyramid. And we're in the pyramid and we're working this gray area and shifting from one to the other depending on not only our personal needs and goals, but the stressors from outside that say in a month you're competing in a judo competition,
Right.
then I'm going to change how I train.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. You know, when Chris mentioned street sport and art, it doesn't matter which aspect of the triangle we're looking at, the fight starts standing. A lot of times in training, we choose to start, some people choose to start on their knees. I was told that was a bad habit, so we don't do that here.
Right.
But if there's not enough space, we usually somebody chooses guard. Or if I'm going with a 300-pound person, I make them play guard.
Right.
So I don't want to get chucked. But I've always liked the feeling of having a little bit of confidence on my feet. And that's what your summit is called, Takedown Confidence Summit. Because I think my first competition, I was rudely awakened by how the girl just picked me up and put me on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, I'm practicing this art for, you know, the street sport and art aspects of it. And I want to at least feel confident on my feet. I don't have to be a black belt in judo. I don't have to know all the kata and do all the things and do all the competitions, but I want to have a little bit of confidence so I just don't get put on my butt. And that's why I appreciate this Takedown Confidence Summit.
That's great. You know, and it's so true, because we do hear that so much about how, we're talking self-defense or competition, whatever we're talking about, we talk about how, you know, 80% of the time or whatever it is, the statistic is, you know, the fight ends up on the ground, and that may be true, but how do we get to the ground, right? Or, you know, how do we keep from going to the ground if that's not something we want to happen, right? So I think the takedown confidence, you know, is a two-sided coin too. You know, I think if you understand takedowns, then you're going to have a greater ability to defend against takedowns as well, right? But if our goal is to get the fight down to the ground where we're, you know, doing our jiu-jitsu, we've got to be able to make that happen too, right? So it's not as easy as what people think sometimes. And like you said, also, and just knowing a few things, it doesn't mean you have to be a black belt in judo or you have to be a Division I wrestler. You just have to know how to, you know, close the distance and get that to the ground. I think early days with, you know, like Royce Gracie fighting in UFC was a pretty good example of that, where his takedowns were not super awesome, spectacular takedowns. He just, you know, clinched with people and then found a way to trip them to the ground, right? So, and that's where he did his best work. That's where he wanted to do his thing. So, and he was stuck, you know, he was fighting a lot of strikers back in the day. So that was kind of his, you know, his strength was once they got to the ground, they didn't know what to do for the most part. Things have evolved, you know, and like Chris said, the environment definitely, you know, influences the way you train. I think, Chris, you're the first person I really heard talk about that very much. And I remember you, I think it was quite a while back, I saw a video where you're talking about in the garage where you guys train, anything that's padded is part of the training area, right?
Yes.
So it could be the people next to you, it could be the punching bag, the wall, whatever it is.
Other humans, the wall, as long as it's matted and or soft, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
You could roll in there a heavy bag if you wanted, and
obstacle course. Ooh, that's a new thing. We should make that up. Obstacle course jiu-jitsu.
Obstacle gravity, right?
I will say that, you know, from my Jeet Kune Do era of training, there was a lot of that. And especially what I really loved was, like, all of a sudden the lights would go out and we would be in the dark. Sometimes we would be light sparring. Now, granted, it wasn't the most realistic sparring, but then they would throw in a knife and and it's on the ground. And the kid in me, and when I watch my son play, I'm reminded of how much fun the classical fantasy aspect of the Jeet Kune Do world was, right? Because you're playing. It was like, and
well, jiu-jitsu should be played too.
I think so, and I have more fun with the,
especially now that we're 100 years old and our bodies don't work.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
I for sure have a lot more fun with the let's call it reality style of combat sports, unless it's regimented. And you can have regimentation in both fantasy performance arts and in reality combat sports.
Right.
I think the worst aspect that I find, but personally, is when it's out of a balance. Either there's no organization whatsoever, and then it gets weird, or when it's overly regulated and organized.
Yeah.
And I think the ideal is to find the balance, and that a balance again will shift depending on whether you are leaning more into sport, art, or street. But there is no, but kind of like when you're doing Newaza, but there is no balance point that's fixed. It's always shifting.
Yeah.
And when we train, there is no right way. It's an always shifting. It's right in this circumstance and right in this, but it's wrong if you. And so therein lies life's a paradox. And if there's any wisdom from martial arts and combat sports, it would be an understanding that there is no right answer. There is no right move. There is no right a counter. There is what there is in the fleeting moment of time, in the constant off balance of life.
Yeah. I think in one of the judo terminologies that we use a lot, when we break down a throw, we talk about kuzushi, that's our off balancing. The tsukuri is the fitting in, and the kake is the completion. The tsukuri, the fitting in, people get confused about that because they think, okay, well, my opponent is in this position. I need to put myself in this position to make the thing happen. But I always think of it in the reverse. I'm going to adapt to whatever position my opponent moves into. I want to be able to capitalize on how he puts himself off balance or whatever the position we end up in, just kind of accepting it and going with it, not necessarily like seeking it out so much, right? Does that make sense?
100%. And I find that the let's call it the conservative preservation of the Japanese spirituality behind their art is something that is of huge value, and I find it somewhat lacking in the other combat sports.
Yeah.
In the more westernized combat sports, including westernized judo.
Right.
And that's like, call it our Western cultural weakness, which is also our strength.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and I think I was talking to Tim Cartmel yesterday, and we were kind of discussing something similar. Whereas, my Japanese, or my judo instructor was Japanese, and his way of teaching was, you do what I tell you to do until you die, right? Don't ask. I'm not going to explain to you why. You need to figure that out yourself, right? And then you're going to have a deeper understanding of it. And there was a benefit in that struggle, right? Because you work hard, and then you kind of figure it out, and then you appreciate that struggle. Whereas here in the West, we tend to want to know why. Why do I need to do this, and why does it work the way that it works? I'd see benefit in both, right? But there has to be a balance there for sure. You got to have the work ethic. You got to put in the work to learn and do the thing, right? But I think it does benefit us, our way of thinking anyway, of knowing why I'm doing the thing that I'm doing and how it's going to work, right? So the science behind it, I guess.
I think so.
For sure. We're a bunch of rebels, and you can't just tell us to do something without giving us a good reason.
We're like 2-year-olds. Yeah. You tell them something and they say, why? Right.
Yeah.
Why? We want to know why.
At least American 2-year-olds do.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So real quick, I want to touch base on the Takedown Confidence Summit for our audience. Tell everybody what that is. That is a summit that we did that's going to be released or available to view on November 18th, 19th, and 20th. Each day of that summit, there will be 10 speakers. So there's 30 speakers total. right? So each day there's 10 speakers. Day one, you have 10 speakers. You have 24 hours to watch those videos. And then day two happens, you got 10 new speakers. And then day three happens, 10 new speakers. And then after that, if you haven't purchased the all access pass, then those videos are gone forever, right? So, but if you purchase the all access pass, which is $47, you get lifetime access to all of those interviews, 30 interviews with BJJ, judo, sambo, wrestling, MMA experts, right? So it's pretty awesome. All of those instructors have also filmed a technique video. So with the all access pass, you get a takedown technique video from each of those instructors, which is just amazing, right? That's
super amazing.
I want an all access pass.
Yeah, me
I
too.
do too, right? I do too. And you know, as I was thinking earlier about how, you know, when I did the interviews, I got all these nuggets of information. It was so awesome to just talk to everybody. And then as I'm going through and doing the editing and getting everything processed, you know, to post the videos, it's like I'm reliving it and I'm listening again and catching things that I missed the first time. And so like, man, I could just watch this over and over and over again. And here I'm the guy making the videos, but I'm a fan. I'm like, this is amazing, right? This is awesome. And so, you know, I think it's a really good value for people. $47 is pretty cheap for something like that.
Absolutely.
If you wait until the week of the event, the price goes up to $67. If you wait until the event is going on, the price goes up again. So the best time to buy it is right now, $47. You'll also get a MP3 audio of each of the interviews. You get a transcription of the interviews, and then there's some more bonuses on there too that you can check out when you guys go and check out the website. It's takedownconfidencesummit.com, right? And I posted a link in the comments right here so people can just go click on the link and it'll take them right to it. So one more thing I want to ask you guys, you know, as far as for our viewers go, what do you think the greatest benefit is for them in going on and checking out this Takedown Confidence Summit?
Well, I can say this from my own experience. I wrestled before I boxed and kickboxed, and that helped me understand a lot about boxing and kickboxing. But I never felt really comfortable boxing and kickboxing until I learned some judo and Greco. And then when I returned to my sweeps in the jiu-jitsu, I suddenly clicked that all sweeps are throws from your back on the mat.
Absolutely.
And the element of the setup and the timing then became suddenly hugely valuable. And whereas a guy who got very few sweeps from learning a few the judo throws, even if I wasn't great at the judo throw, I would suddenly grasp, oh, I got to get this pivot point over here. And so I think they all help each other. And if I had 15 more years of youth, I would probably spend the next 8 of it competing in judo.
Yeah.
I think, Larry, you said there's 30 different instructors from different arts here. 30.
Yes, ma'am.
That is a lot of different ways that people can explain their experience with takedowns. And my experience is that I need to hear a lot of things until something clicks. So chances are that by watching this Takedown Confidence Summit with 30 different instructors, something is going to click. So I highly encourage you to participate in this.
Me too.
You know, I see in the comments here, somebody's asking about Kosen Judo. And, you know, when I was learning judo, I learned Kodokan Judo. My instructor was from the Kodokan in Japan. He had trained there since he was 8 years old. He grew up in Tokyo, right? He's Japanese. And the style of judo that we did was old school Kodokan. So we didn't do the Olympic sport judo. We did old school Kodokan Judo, which was very like the Kosen Judo that people think, you know, think of now. We did a lot of groundwork. And I see a lot of, you know, like sometimes you could see a jiu-jitsu school that does takedowns and they'll do, you know, 90% groundwork and maybe, you know, 10% takedowns. And you'll see the opposite with the judo academy and judo dojo where they do you know, 90% of their work is stand up, and then they do 15% on the newaza on the ground. The way that we trained, we was 50-50. I mean, we spent a considerable amount in both areas. My instructor did wait until you got kind of a foundation in your throws first, right? So when you were close to brown belt level, maybe, and then from then on, we did a lot of groundwork, and you know, that was something different than other judo schools that I've visited since then. I didn't know how good I had it. Well, I had it, you know. So, and that's how we train here too. We're doing both all the time, right? So, but so somebody in the comments had asked about Kosen judo, and so yeah, I mean that's judo with more grappling, you know, is really what it is. Modern judo, Olympic judo, the Olympics, I think, kind of I wouldn't say ruined judo, but it definitely took a lot of the combative aspects out of it, because, you know, they wanted to be more spectacular for, you know, the people watching, the audience. So
yeah, that's and again, we fight the rules.
yeah.
Environment is stronger than will, and
Absolutely.
when you are not rewarded for being on the ground, you are going to avoid being on the ground.
Yep.
When you are not only not rewarded grabbing legs, but you are punished, then you won't grab legs.
Yep.
And the one thing I can't stand with modern Olympic style, and of course their area of expertise is unmatched in that initial clinch, finding your grips, the off balance, and a throw. But once the throw is literally in the air, they stop caring.
Yep.
And they they roll through and land in horrible street positions,
Yep,
often exposing their back. There's no ground control. That would be their weakness, in the same way that a IBJ, the JF style guard puller is going to fight how he trains.
Yep.
And there's, you know, might not be a bad idea in a real fight.
Right. You know, it's one of the things that I've really focused on when I'm teaching my takedowns is what I call the fortune is in the follow-up. You know, so in modern judo, they do what I call throw their opponent away. They just throw them away, right? They just want to get their ippon. They want to get, you know, the opponent on the ground, no matter what. I would look at it as a transition, right? So just like when we're grappling, we want to go from position to, you know, advance to a better position, into a better position, you know, on until maybe you've got their back and you got a strangle locked in, right? So you want to advance until you get the best possible position you can get, or catch a submission en route, right? So, but I think takedowns get looked at separately than the groundwork. And what I like to do is look at the takedown as a method, a transition into my groundwork, right? So I don't just throw the opponent, I put it's with intent, right? My intent is I want to get them to the ground, and I want to be in a dominant position or moving into a dominant position immediately, not putting myself in a bad position as a result of my takedown, right?
Yep. And I would say that out of all of the gi competition rules, I think the best rules out there right now are Higan Machado's Jiu-Jitsu World League rules. Those are the best rules, because you are heavily rewarded for high amplitude throws.
Right. I agree.
And you are less rewarded for dragging a guy onto the ground.
Right.
And that should be it, because the ideal, which we never meet, the ideal is that the combat sport mimics a real fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say MMA clearly is the most accurate mimic of an absolute no rules fight, because we cannot have absolutely no rules, or we lose eyes, we get kicked in the groin, we maim each other.
Right.
And I will end with this. When I was a purple belt before UFC 1, and I'm instructing in the panhandle of the American South, and a guy became nice guy who was the lightweight strongman, a champion of either America or the world. He was an arm wrestling champion, could tear in half phone books, pick up large weight plates and all that.
Right.
And he was interested in learning just enough to where he could reach and either grab hold of the skin on your neck or your pec and rip it off. And when you could dig your hand in a pail of gravel and scoop up a grip of gravel, that's a pretty effective street art, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
One that you could never realistically, unless we go to ancient Rome, have realistic competition with. Yeah.
That reminds me, I saw a video one time of, I think it was, I can't remember, filmed somewhere in South America, and it was two soldiers that were kind of different armies. I think one was maybe a U.S. soldier and another guy was, I think, Peru. I think they're in Peru. And these two guys decided that they wanted to fight and they wanted to have a real fight. And I remember the American soldier who had, I think, some Kung Fu experience before. I can't remember what he had done, but he just poked the guy in the eye and walked away. And that was it. That was the end of the fight. And people don't realize, how that puts you out. You're done, right? When you get your eye poked. I think he poked the guy's eye nearly out. Like he really did it with bad intentions. It wasn't just a, fake poke. It was like he stabbed him in the eye with his fingers, and that was it. That was the end of the fight. So, that's stuff we can't do in MMA. We can't imitate, we can't, we can kind of play around and imitate it, but we can't definitely do that when we're practicing for real, right? So. All right. Well, thank you guys for being with us today.
Absolutely.
Everybody, all of our viewers out there, again, go to the takedownconfidencesummit.com. There is a link posted in the comments in this video right here. Be sure to click on that link and go check it out and look at the all access pass and get that early if you can. Early bird special is the best way to do it and save yourself a few bucks.
Super excited. Thanks so much, Larry.
All right, thank you guys. I'm looking forward to us sharing this with everybody. I think that everybody's going to be super impressed and benefit greatly from it for sure.
Right on, brother.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Okay.
Hope your back feels better.
All right. Thank you. Bye.